Welcome back to the Business of Wellness. If you're new here, welcome. I'm your host, Jaclyn London, registered dietitian, author, and your go-to myth-busting expert in the world of food, nutrition, and health. For my longtime listeners, thank you so much for being here. I am always so grateful for you and for you showing up and sharing your thoughts with me on social. For newbies, that's at Jaclyn London RD, and in the reviews of this podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Here's the thing. This podcast is where we break down wellness trends, analyze what's really happening in the food and healthcare industries across the board. And we get into the nitty-gritty at the intersection of nutrition science, business, culture, and policy. Today's episode, I really believe that this is going to be a special treat for all of you watching right now. We are recapping everything from Expo West 2025. What's super hot, what is totally overhyped, and the conversations that are shaping the future of food and wellness. Plus, I am going to give you a little bit of behind the scenes industry gossip. So stay tuned for that. I believe the kids call that tea. I'm going to spill the tea. God, do I sound old when I say it like that? Just stop, Jackie. Okay. Anyway, we'll talk about all of the highlights of the panel that I sat on for this event, which was all about front of pack nutrition labeling. I will also give you a sneak peek into what's new and next in CPG, a little trend forecasting. We'll talk about the pros and the cons of all of that for both brands and consumers. I've also got a major MAHA update to share with you guys. Lots happening there, moving at breakneck speed, and some fascinating stuff, and also completely mundane at the same time. So we'll get into all of that. I also feel like there's just a lot happening with how the food industry is currently responding to RFK Jr. and to the MAHA movement. So we have a lot of ground to cover on that front. As always, thank you for being here. I cannot wait to hear what you think. You can share feedback with me on social. Again, that's at Jaclyn London RD, or by leaving a review wherever you're listening to this right now. And I can't wait to hear from you. Let's dive in. Let's talk Expo West, trends, MAHA. Here we go. If you are unfamiliar with Expo West, I feel like we need to start there. Okay, Natural Products Expo West is the biggest trade show in the natural, organic, and functional food space. Think of it as Fashion Week, but for snacks, beverages, and wellness products. It's also a lot of personal care, which I always forget about. There's a lot of beauty brands that attend Expo West, as well as cleaning products. It's where brands, both big and small, come to showcase their new products. They also kind of road test some of their trends. They hopefully catch the attention of buyers, investors, and of course, media. It's also where you'll find everything from innovation in plant-based. I feel like this was the epicenter of where the entire plant-based movement was born. It's also where you'll see a lot of things about specific targeted health trends. Examples: gut health, brain health, performance nutrition. If it's launching in the health and wellness space, it's most likely going to launch at Expo West, and it will probably be somewhere at Expo West in some capacity. So this year I walked the floor, but the main reason that I attended the event in the first place was to both take meetings as well as sit on this panel about front of pack nutrition labeling. And I've got to say, let me bring you up to speed on what's happening in that space before I get into what we spoke about, what I talked about. Basically, the FDA has been working on a standardized front of pack nutrition label that would help consumers quickly identify healthier options. It's kind of like a shortcut version of the nutrition facts panel, but it would be on the front of a product's packaging versus the back. The goal is to make it easier for people to make healthier choices without needing a PhD in nutrition label reading. However, from what you're about to hear, I personally think that it almost has the opposite effect. I think it actually makes it seem like you do, in fact, need a PhD to understand nutrition. Here's what's being proposed right now: a simplified icon system that would flag key nutrients like calories, added sugar, saturated fat, and sodium front and center on the packaging. The way that this is being visualized right now is to show almost like an exact replica of the nutrition facts label, but only highlighting certain key ingredients. Another alternative is a possible color-coded system, like green for good, red for caution, or red for stop, and yellow for caution, and using this kind of traffic light system to indicate how a product aligns with dietary guidelines. I've got to say, this is the method that's actually used globally. The country that stands out the most is Mexico, and it has been relatively successful. The thing is that we are not Mexico, and we are not many of the countries around the world that have attempted to use some of these programs. So we'll get into some of the concerns there. There's also a push toward consistency of use across the food industry, so that different products would be using the same type of stylistic logo on the front of the package so that it could signify something that's easy to use and to apply in real life for consumers. In theory, I think this sounds like something that has huge potential, right? I mean, just on its face, it sounds like great. Front of pack nutrition label, why not? If you're one of those people who thinks they know everything about nutrition, like the public health policy think tank and NGO quote unquote experts that likely weighed in on this label, I think this is probably sounding like a huge win to you. In reality, if you know anything about the data that exists about both food labeling as well as consumer behavior, you know that this is a complete waste of time, energy, and taxpayer dollars, frankly. Information without context does not change behavior. We know this. This is not like up for debate. You know what I mean? This is one of those things that time and time again reveals itself to be true, no matter how hard we try when it comes to adding more labels to a product or to signify how nutritious a food product is or is not, the more confused consumers become. I think about how many efforts have been made here in my home city of New York, and it's innumerable. I just think about the Mayor Bloomberg days where we did so much around the discussion about labeling and the taxes on sugar-sweetened beverages and some of the implementations that happened. And a lot of this was around the idea of cultivating transparency. Again, such a great idea in theory. The thing is that transparency of information without context is just overwhelm for consumers. It leaves people feeling like they're on a boat in the middle of the ocean with no life jacket. So I think it's really worth considering what we're willing to do to help consumers prepare for these food labels, for this food label change, and if that includes nutrition education or not. Because if it doesn't, then it might be something to rethink. That's just my 2 cents on that. The thing is that a lot of what was being discussed on this panel specifically was using front of pack nutrition labeling in the form of a barcode to drive traffic to content that continues to drive brand awareness by doubling down on social and experiential content marketing that effectively tells what a brand wants to tell, the story that a brand wants to tell about its product. That sounds compelling, certainly from an industry standpoint. That sounds compelling. That could be used for great things. It could also be very much abused. So I think that would depend on what exactly this would look like and what type of information would be shared with consumers. I also think it's worth mentioning that consumers are really drawn to values-driven claims lately, but they do not always translate into meaningfully healthier choices. It just doesn't happen that way. Front of pack nutrition labeling could easily reveal health halo marketing if it's done right, I guess, but it can also show actually better for you products if it's done right. I just think it's more likely to be done incorrectly than it is to go well. I do believe that there is something that needs to be done to help make it easier for consumers to spot healthier options at point of sale. This is my whole career basically up until now. When I was at Good Housekeeping and founded the Good Housekeeping Nutritionist Approved emblem, it was entirely for this reason, because I felt like there was nothing telling consumers, yes, this is a better for you choice in this category, and the reason for that is XYZ. Or just that you didn't even have to think about the reason, that you could just have something there that helped you understand that this is here to signify a better for you choice in a category that makes it easier for you to eat healthier without sacrificing taste, time, or cost. Now, here's the thing. It's more than okay for products not to focus on health and just focus on environmental or sustainability benefits. It's also okay for your product to not necessarily be better for you, right? Like, not everything has to be better for you. We do need products that still meet the consumer need for conscious indulgence. I wonder if, and especially right now, some of the focus of the front of pack nutrition labeling has been specifically on calories, added sugar, and saturated fat and sodium. I think this is in many ways I'm mincing words here, and I'm just going to tell you what I think. I think this is stupid. I just think it's blatantly stupid, and it's so short-sighted. Americans don't know what those words mean. They don't actually know what those words mean. You are likely, as a listener of this podcast, I'm sure, do know what those words mean because you've been here with me listening to this and plenty of other places. If you're interested in this topic, that means you know what those words mean. Most people do not. A lot of people also think they do, and they do not. And so I cannot see a world in which this meaningfully changes consumer behavior, because if you don't know the amount of calories, added sugar, saturated fat, sodium that you should be having in a day, and you don't know the foods in which those products are most present, you're not doing all that math in your head. You're not saying, well, okay, this has 6 grams of added sugar and this other thing has 26 grams of added sugar. And what is the amount that I'm supposed to have again? Most people are just not doing that. So I really just feel like this is a moment for the FDA to just snap out of it. And that brings me to really my final point on this matter is whether or not this is going to happen altogether. So we sat on this panel, which was really fascinating and interesting. The founder of Good Pop was on the panel with me, as well as his lawyer, who was talking about some of the food labeling laws, and he's a plaintiff lawyer. So he was discussing a lot of the loopholes that exist in the food industry currently and how this could work in the future and how it's currently evolving based on RFK and the MAHA movement. And I think we definitely came to the same conclusion. By the way, there was someone also from, I believe it was Interact Brands, and from Kroger Health, another dietitian, all talking about various programs in front of pack nutrition labeling, the legalities, and what's happening in the industry right now. To put a final point on this entire project is that since there's no one size fits all approach, and healthier choices are really best guided by clear and relevant claims that align with individual health goals, and for brands, it's really about your consumer data insights. I think that having really broad claims on front of packaging that address what's not in the product or the negatives about the product is useless at best, confusing at worst, and again, a waste of taxpayer dollars. Ultimately, prioritizing whole foods in products and in marketing and in language and communication is going to be key for the changing consumer landscape in 2025. But just as I feel about the term healthy and the redefining process of that term on food labels, the world has moved on. Most of us already have a halo opinion of how good for us or bad for us a specific product is. And it's based on a vibe. Unfortunately, it's not really based on information. I was hearing something the other day that was, I want to say it was, actually, it's just so random, but I want to say it was Andrew Schultz on Megyn Kelly's show. I think it was actually. And he made this statement that was popularized by Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire, which is facts don't care about your feelings. Very much a true statement. On the polar opposite of that, Andrew Schultz was making the point that feelings don't care about your facts. And he couldn't be more right about that when it comes to nutrition specifically. So basically, Andrew Schultz, a comedian and a dietitian, feelings don't care about your facts. So when it comes to food and nutrition, it's about a vibe. And if you don't already perceive a product to be quote unquote better for you, whatever that means to you, and again, remember, it means different things to different people, then how meaningful is this type of labeling actually going to be? The other thing is, I think it just in general places a really undue emphasis on health claims, nutrient content claims, and prioritizing those whole foods, prioritizing eating more real foods is where we want to shift our efforts. So why would we take time and money and resources when we already know that this administration is slimming down on resources in a big way? Why would we take those resources and put it toward a label that is guaranteed to be meaningless at best? This just does not sound sensible to me. And I think shifting those shifting priorities to getting people to eat more real whole foods needs to be reflected in the actions that we take at the federal level. Anyway, I said all of that on this panel. That's an update for those of you who did not get to attend Expo West and did not have the opportunity to come to this front of pack nutrition labeling panel. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. In the meantime, let's get into Expo West trends. When I tell you guys that Expo West is the place to see what's up and coming in food, nutrition, wellness, everything, it does not disappoint. There are so multiple expo halls filled with products. Honestly, it's like Fashion Week, honestly, has been so pared down over the years that I'm now wondering if Fashion Week is even the right comparison. It's like Fashion Week and the Super Bowl had a baby almost. I feel like there were a number of trends that really stood out to me that I just kind of brain dumped into the notes app on my phone after the show. So I'm going to share basically that brain dump with you now. First trend, dragon fruit. Dragon fruit, everything. Dragon fruit is having a moment. We're seeing it in bars, beverages, snack bites, you name it. It's a fun, colorful, flavorful, tropical antioxidant health halo that brands absolutely love to lean into. The thing is that a lot of the products that I've seen in the past that have dragon fruit or pitaya in it typically have a ton of added sugar. So it was interesting to see that this has evolved quite significantly. There's actually quite a number of different products out there that are dragon fruit flavored that are made without added sugar or using sugar alternatives that are non-nutritive. From a nutritional standpoint, dragon fruit itself is very nutrient dense. It packs soluble and insoluble fiber, prebiotics, high water content, and other bioactive compounds, just like all other fruits, right? But something that I learned recently, 100 grams of yellow dragon fruit has about 5 to 7 grams of fiber. but a medium whole fruit, so just the pulp, but like the whole fruit of that pulp, has up to 15 to 28 grams of fiber, which is basically your entire day's worth in one fruit. Amazing. I also discovered that only because I reacted to a video of someone eating a whole yellow dragon fruit on Instagram who was like, pardon my French listeners, but basically shitting her brains out. She just had eaten a whole yellow dragon fruit in order to get things moving, and it moved a little too quickly and quite significantly. So just a word of caution there. The thing that I was stuck on, I'm still stuck on a little bit about the topic of dragon fruit is, what does it taste like? Like, what does dragon fruit taste like to you? And I don't just mean, yellow or pink or white. I can't really describe it. It's kind of melony. It's kind of kiwi-like. It's a little bit of watermelon. I think that's an interesting component of things, is that when I say that it's really flavorful, I mean, yeah, it's flavorful, but what exactly is it that I'm tasting? I did a consumer panel with Sunsweet back in October when I was at Fancy, and I was talking about how something that is unique about prunes is that we don't often talk about the flavor of prunes. Like, what is the unique flavor? When I say, and just to give you guys a little bit of context for that, when I say Granny Smith apple, we all have a very specific back of the mouth, kind of sour but sweet, really refreshing, really crisp, really bright and vibrant taste that we associate with that, right? But we haven't really put words to what we taste when we taste prunes. I love prunes, but I feel like something that's missing from their messaging has been all about the way that they taste, because we're more focused on, the rebranding and bringing them to young people and talking about the health benefits, and like all of that is obviously great. It's just that we don't really know how to describe what they taste like. And I think that's a really important component of how people experience food, of course, right? So we need to know what they taste like in order to be able to describe it to people. And we need really specific adjectives in order to do that. I feel the same way about dragon fruit. We could use, granted, it would be, I think dragon fruit would like to be at the place that prunes are currently at. It's just something to think about as products that have dragon fruit in them move forward. Trend number 2, caffeinated everything and caffeine plus protein combos. From sparkling energy drinks to caffeinated yogurt, yes, you did hear that correctly, brands are doubling down on caffeine. I think that was probably the ingredient of the expo. I think the real twist of it is that combo, but it actually makes all of the sense, and in many ways, I'm surprised we haven't gotten there yet, because what is a latte? A latte is caffeine plus protein. I feel like smacking my forehead a little bit, like, duh, like, hello, why have we not gotten here yet? We should have been here all along. Anyway, I like how it's leaning into human physiology. I like that about this trend. It's having food with caffeine means really less jitters, but it also means a more steady rise in energy levels and a more prolonged rise in energy levels. So you can feel that feeling of energy for longer. I think it's brilliant. Back to the yogurt for a second. I see this in Tillamook's collaboration with Stumptown. Oikos also has a line of Pro Fuel. That one's more like a yogurt drink that's really geared toward that more active consumer. I think this makes all of the sense. I'm very much here for this trend. The third, regenerative agriculture certified. You guys, when I tell you that this is the next USDA organic, take notes, okay? Because this is a big one, and I could not believe how much I was seeing this certification on front of pack of food products. By the way, back to the front of pack nutrition labeling, you see how kind of DOA this FDA label will be ultimately, because if we have front of pack nutrition labels with so many other types of third-party verifications and claims, marketing in food is absolutely everything, and it's been prioritized at the cost of so many other things. So right away, just seeing regenerative agriculture certified as an up and coming third-party label means, where are we going to even put that front of pack nutrition label, right? Where is the real estate? Where regenerative agriculture certified, definitely the new buzzword. Brands are emphasizing soil health, carbon sequestration, and biodiversity. It's overseen by the Regenerative Organic Alliance, which was founded by organizations like the Rodale Institute, Dr. Bronner's, and Patagonia, and it's considered one of the most comprehensive standards for regenerative ag, integrating principles of, again, soil health and land management, animal welfare, fairness for farmers and workers. From the Regenerative Organic Certified website, let me just give you the overview. Established in 2017 by a group of farmers, leaders, and experts in soil health, animal welfare, social fairness, collectively called Regenerative Organic Alliance, or ROA. By adopting regenerative organic practices on more farms around the world, we can create long-term solutions to the climate crisis, factory farming, and fractured rural economies. The ROC label is designed to go beyond organic standards by ensuring that food and fiber products contribute positively to to environmental and social sustainability. Guys, if you're interested in this topic, I highly suggest going back to my episode with the co-founders of the Spare Food Company, Jeremy K and Adam K. They're brothers who have committed to creating products in the regenerative ag space. And they started this with their sparkling tonic, which upcycles whey protein, which is a byproduct of milk production, to be made into this other higher protein drink, one of the OGs of the sparkling tonics in the space. My question is, despite this label being everywhere, how much will this actually resonate with consumers in real life? To be honest, I don't have this off the top of my head, but like how much does USDA Organic even necessarily register with consumers as a label in its own right versus as something that now indicates that the product will be more expensive? I feel like I'm hearing the regenerative ag term with increased frequency, and that's in no small part because of the MAHA movement. But I think the bigger question mark when it comes to CPG food that's branded as regenerative is how actually beneficial for human health can all of these things actually be? Again, it just sounds like another sustainability claim to me that may or may not have an implication on human health. It's only going to be as good for your health as what the ingredients in that product actually are and the amount of and frequency with which you as an individual consume that product. Going back to Jeremy and Adam's beverage, which is such a smart idea and really such a cool product. To make the beverage taste good, they've got added sugar in there. It's in the form of honey, and it's up to 5 grams per beverage, which is honestly pretty good as far as beverages go. But that can add up. And we know that most of us are over consuming added sugar, so it's not really the best moment to have a product that is a beverage that contains any added sugar at all. It is, again, significantly better compared to obviously sugar sweetened sodas, which for the same amount could be over 26 grams, basically your whole day's worth of added sugar in one can. But there's also 3 types of juices in each type of beverage, not labeled as added sugar, because fresh squeezed juice can do that, even though it's technically a concentrated source of added sugar. This is a lot of jargon to basically just say the more products of those that you consume throughout the day, the more likely it is that you're still going to be consuming foods high in added sugar, saturated fat, and sodium, whether they're regenerative, organic, certified or not. And ultimately, all of that can be doing more harm than good. So here we are with yet another sustainability certification, something that if it has the success of USDA Organic will seem almost like a mandatory cost of entry for consumer packaged goods. And I don't see that as a net benefit on helping Americans get healthier. And I don't know that it's going to matter that significantly to most consumers. Although, granted, that's the entire thing about Natural Products Expo West, is that it really is speaking to a kind of 1% crowd, because these are the food products of the 1%. These are already upper echelon of the natural, organic, the wellness space. This is like Gwyneth Paltrow's food show. This is not hoagies and beer. This is CBD and mushroom gummies. That's what we're talking about here. Just a little food for thought on that one. All right, my next trend, electrolytes, sparkling everything and prebiotics. Speaking of sparkling tonics, hydration meets gut health. I'm so freaking tired of this, you guys. I really can't with this anymore. If I saw one more sparkling tonic beverage at this show, I really felt like I was going to scream. By the end of the show, I also realized that the ingredients have shifted quite a bit. It's not really just about the prebiotics, although that's very much still here. It's really about the electrolytes. Electrolytes are the new prebiotics. Electrolyte enhanced waters as a category, still growing. Now they're merging with sparkling beverages and prebiotic fiber for extra digestion support. The space is getting super crowded, and I think this is going to be an interesting one for brands in the space, because I got to say there were some really huge like build out brands, like ones with huge indoor installations for their booth setup. And there's lots of different versions of this product. The truth is that these are wholly unnecessary. I mean, if you're a long-term listener of this podcast, yeah, there's a time and place for these. There's plenty of reasons that I can cite that people might want these. If you're pregnant and lactating in some cases, if you're an athlete in some cases, if you are someone that just has lower serum sodium levels, then absolutely there's a use case for these. But for most people, we are consuming too much sodium. We just are. We're over consuming this nutrient. So the idea that you should add more in the form of an electrolyte beverage is honestly absurd. And it's a trend that we know has been quite significantly led by the brand Element, LMNT. You know how I feel about that. It's yet another way that we are ignoring the data on a topic and choosing to just double down. It's also really interesting to see, given that if you are running a marathon, the most effective way to consume electrolytes is through Gatorade because of the presence of carbohydrates. You need those carbs to efficiently get those electrolytes in you faster and to help you feel normal and basically replete what you're missing, replete those losses, and help your muscles and nerves contract normally, perform as they need to. These products do not have sugar. Yes, that appeals to someone like me who is going to be out there saying, yeah, this is great for the everyday consumer, even though the everyday consumer doesn't need extra electrolytes. But the one area, the one place in which added sugar is kind of essential is if you're targeting the group that would otherwise need additional electrolytes. So this really makes no sense. And yet the food industry going full steam ahead on the electrolytes, doubling down. There's other sparkling waters that are still on that prebiotic probiotic train. One of the more interesting products that I saw at this show is really in the sparkling space, Clean Simple Eats protein. They're ready to drink beverages. They are making clear protein sodas. So like instead of your Core Power, your Fairlife, which is in milk form, even if it's lactose free, clear protein, it's exactly like what I'm saying. It's clear. It's like a clear liquid, but with added protein in there. I can't stress enough how innovative this is in many different ways, because when I worked in the hospital, we would look for products like this all the time that were tasty for patients, because there was basically only one brand at the time that I was working inpatient. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was so useful because when you're not feeling well, but we need to get more protein into you to help you heal, having a clear liquid product is huge, because you're not really in the mood for things like a milkshake, depending on who you are. Or at least if you are in the mood for a milkshake, you want to be able to have one for breakfast and then something different for lunch or dinner. So you need variety when it comes to products like these. On the flip side, when I went to go read the ingredients of a product like this, I thought, gosh, that's a lot of iso, maltosaccharide. Like there's a lot of sugar alcohols in here, which can be kind of difficult for people to tolerate when they consume these in large amounts. And the serving sizes of these products are kind of big in a good way. And if you like the taste of them, if you can tolerate these additives. So there's just something to think about there, because I think it is generally a great and really innovative product. I think the ready to drink beverages were super interesting to me because a lot of them, again, have that caffeine plus protein combo in the form of a beverage, and they're clear liquid and they're sparkling. I tried one that was like a coconut flavor. The only downside to me is that there's a very slight stevia aftertaste to it. If you're a listener of this podcast, you must have heard me complain about this before. I can't stand the stevia aftertaste. However, it wasn't so powerful that I didn't drink it. Would I repeat purchase this type of thing, even though I didn't purchase it at the show? Maybe. Depends on the use case. Depends what I'm in the mood for. By the way, they are a huge influencery brand. I feel like I first heard about them from someone who asked me a question about them on Instagram. So definitely lots of movement in that brand and in that category in general. But I really do think that it's a very innovative product if you just take it from the microcosm of our national obsession with protein, the need for different types of products that aren't necessarily that dairy or dairy-based or dairy-like consistency. And if you just think about the variety in which we consume products that contain added protein, I think this has a ton of potential. All right, let's get into GLP-1 support marketing. The weight loss conversation around GLP-1 medications, Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, is changing how brands position their products. More functional foods are now marketed as GLP-1 friendly with high protein, sometimes high fiber, blood sugar stabilizing quote unquote ingredients. That really is protein and fiber. All I can say about this is to be wary of the supplements that are making these claims. You are probably in good hands with the food products making these claims. And I say that because food making claims like these are going to be high in protein, like yogurts with added protein powder. It's going to be your things like clear protein that I was just talking about could easily get away with this. Protein bars, basically anything with extra protein and or fiber to a lesser extent. But maybe some of the electrolyte boom is related to GLP-1s because there's this thinking in the food industry that's like, let's maximize the hydration because GLP-1 users are consuming less overall, so they may be susceptible to dehydration. And that's true, right? Do they need necessarily added electrolytes? Maybe not. The thing is, you need more protein on a GLP-1 definitively. And because you can often use a little GI support in helping you stay regular by adding more fiber and of course drinking more water, all of these do make sense in some capacity. Since portions are also significantly impacted by the rise of GLP-1s, there's also a boom in the single serve category, which I have noticed across the snack space. And that value proposition is already somewhat baked into the products that are going to be present or launching at Expo West in the first place. I'm confident that you as a listener of this podcast know that all of this is just marketing. If you're a brand listening to this podcast though, and you're wondering if you should get into this space, my advice to you would be the following. Please don't do it for the sake of doing it because things can always change on a dime. We don't know the future of regulation around GLP-1s and whether or not they'll be covered by insurance, in what capacity. We also don't know the long-term safety data that may be published. And guys, I'm saying that with an extreme caveat because I really believe in these medications as a general statement. I don't always believe in how they're being used, how they're being misused, frankly, but I believe in the medication on the whole as a category, but I am saying that there's just a lot of unknowns. This is a very new product innovation for the pharmaceutical industry in the weight loss space. It's not new when it comes to diabetes, but it is new for weight loss. So I don't know that you need to go all in with all of the products geared towards GLP-1 users. You're doing it when it makes sense, when it is a natural fit for your product, but do not try to stuff new product innovation dollars behind a GLP-1 product if it's not a natural fit for your brand. If anything, I would consider putting marketing dollars behind an existing product that targets a GLP-1 population. If you already work for a Greek yogurt company and you want to leverage your protein content for the GLP-1 user, that's great. But don't tell me you make candy bars and now you're going to launch a GLP-1 product, because I think that could easily result in a colossal waste of money, time, resources, since the trajectory of how this industry will impact the food industry still remains somewhat unclear. We need more time on this one. The next trend, dates as the new natural sweetener. Move over, honey, and maple syrup. Dates are the star of the natural sweetener category this year. Do I sound like an announcer? They're being used everywhere. Honestly, they're being used in bars, baking mixes, even beverages as a whole food sweetening alternative. Listen, I love this. I couldn't be more obsessed with dates. I mean, honestly, if you are around me for 24 hours, you will see me eat a significant number of dates. I mean, really, I'm in my date era, if you will. It's a bizarre thing to say. Whatever. It's also true. I can put them on anything and everything. Here's something I don't know if we talk about enough when we talk about dates. They are a fresh fruit. They're also shelf stable, and they don't impact blood sugar the way a dried or concentrated source of sugar might, despite being high in total carbohydrates. And that's because they're also super high in fiber. I love the variety of products being made with dates because in many ways it replicates a home cooking trend of using dates to make other sweet dishes when you're baking or cooking. The only word of caution I would provide is that if you're making candy or baked good with dates and you're also adding sugar, it's worth considering the nutrient density of that product as a whole versus buying into the marketing of dates and believing it's just universally beneficial for you. There's still going to be plenty of crap being made with dates being marketed as better for you simply because of the presence of dates in that product. The next trend, Mochi mania. Mochi is going mainstream. We are seeing this in everything from frozen snacks to protein-enhanced mochi bites. Expect to see this chewy, fun texture pop up everywhere. Here's the thing. I loved this when I saw mochi snacks in a few places because I absolutely love, personally, the texture and the consistency of mochi. Do you remember Handles and those places that you would get the frozen yogurt with the toppings bar? God, I love those places. I feel like they still exist, but they used to really have a moment, 2010s-ish. Anyway, the extent to which mochi is being used as a marketing buzzword on products formerly known as being made with rice flour. We're being totally duped, right? Like when I saw these rice snacks branding themselves as mochi snacks, I was like, wait a second. I can't. Come on. There's nothing different about the flavor or about the nutrition then. No, there's not. The answer to that is no, there is not. Simply by taking the word mochi and swapping it in for the word rice is making the same snack, but just with a slightly different brand. That's some Jedi mind stuff from a marketing standpoint. I also understand it because you could easily see a Southeast Asian food company thinking, okay, Americans are really into mochi. Let's just call it mochi instead of rice. Sweet rice flour isn't exactly the most nutrient-dense ingredient. I'd still rather you swap white flour-based snacks for options that are higher in 100% whole grains and or pulses and legumes. But my bottom line is that it's really better as an ice cream topping versus a health halo-y snack. If you make a mochi snack, remember that, please. We used to use this on ice cream and on toppings bars in our little frozen yogurt era. Let's stick with that. Let's not try to rebrand the mochi as some sort of health food. It doesn't need a health halo. It's just a delicious, squishy, yummy consistency snack. That's it. Mood and morality branding across the board at Expo West was fascinating to me. The language around food is definitely shifting. Brands are tapping into emotional well-being in a huge way, but they're doing it through a variety of different methods. One example of this is a coffee brand I came across called Happy, which was launching their new cold brew ready-to-drink cans. The coffee was honestly pretty solid. They donate some of their proceeds to NAMI, which is National Alliance on Mental Illness, and their biggest brand ambassador, from what I can tell, is Robert Downey Jr. Love everything about this mission and love the leveraging of the main active ingredient, back to caffeine, as something that can benefit mental health, which it absolutely can, certainly in the short term. The question I have on a product like this is who is buying the product specifically for the mental health benefits? Probably not many people. It's a nice to have. It's not a need to have. So how much of your profit can you relinquish if a few people will remain loyal customers, if the sole reason for being there is the NAMI relationship? Because ultimately people buy food products for taste and cost. Much further down on that list is health, and then Beyond all of that is some of these more niche, minute influences on how we purchase food, which is things like this, values-based reasons for purchasing products. I love the mental health focus, so please don't get me wrong when I say this. And I love bringing mental health into the conversation about nutrition. I think that's really important. I'm just not sure from a CPG standpoint how this will stand up unless the coffee is absolutely out of this world or the flavors and flavor combos really significantly step it up. Coffee makes everyone happy, unfortunately, for the brand happy. That if you're a coffee drinker, it makes you happy. So branding one type of coffee as happy is not necessarily a point of difference. The other thing I want to mention just on this topic at large, mood branding that's entirely born out of what I see as a liquid death inspired vision for the beverage category, right? That's liquid death for those who are unaware. To me, liquid death is an absolutely brilliant brand case study. It is not easy to replicate, nor should it be directly replicated. So many coffee and beverage brands leveraging the term death. You guys, I'm not even kidding. That's a real thing. Leveraging the term death. Another snack brand, Evil Snacks, which is making snacks out of banana flour, and I cannot see a single way in which that brand name makes sense for the product. It's literally a sustainably sourced banana flour, or they also have another line of products that's mushroom flour based. What? The branding of sinfully good as a tagline feels equally 1990 and completely misguided in 2025. It's just way too esoteric for most consumers, and it reminds me of chocolate commercials in the 90s, right? Like, can't you see like a white woman in her 30s going like, with like a Dove, you know what I mean? Like one of those like Dove mini squares, like sinfully delicious. Like, what is happening? Brands would be really wise to use mood and morality, death, happy, sinful. You'd be very wise to use this more selectively. Only use these words in ways that enhance your marketing and that add to your sense of humor. What makes Liquid Death successful? Their entire brand tone of voice, the way that they have been able to tap into humor and to essentially make fun of themselves as a category. That's what makes them special. They're basically like, water is water. They know that, and they're making fun of the fact that we all know that too. They have put it in a can and called it Liquid Death, and now it's just kind of cool to be seen drinking it. I cannot say enough good things about them as a brand. They are one of the smartest out there. Their valuation reflects that. I understand the tendency of other brands across the industry to piggyback on that success, but it does not work for everyone. And it certainly is not the right tone to strike for every type of product, right? Sinfully good is not a statement that should ever be associated with fucking banana flour. I'm so sorry. Who made you think that sinful was like a good word to use with banana flour? Only use the good, bad, happy, wonderful, amazing when it really makes sense for your product and in a way that does not speak to the nutritional content of the product itself, okay? Because that's really important. That's why Liquid Death gets away with it. That's why they are seen as brilliant and hilarious rather than shaming and weird. It's because what they're saying is that our bodies are 60% water. Everything in life is made up of water. They're just taking the world's most basic element and putting it into a can. Instead of saying water gives us life, they're saying it's liquid death. Stop trying to be them. Okay. By the way, on the topic of a sense of humor, Midday Squares, one of my new favorite brands. I saw them at Expo West, and I can't again say enough good things about them. They based their entire booth at Expo around the cost of cocoa, saying cocoa stole our booth because the cost was so high that they went with simple branding on the design of their Expo booth. It's not quite morality or mood, but it is giving you a very specific tone of voice. It's the we're in it with you vibe versus the let's hop on a trend vibe, which is tonally completely wrong right now. Next on my list is pulses and legumes. Guys, I mean, if you've been following me for a while now, you know I can't shut up about this. I really can't. Beans, peas, lentils, chickpeas, they're not new, of course. They're as old as time, but they're getting a major glow up in snack foods, pasta alternatives, high protein, everything. The rise of protein has been good to the lowly bean. You know what I mean? All I can say to this is fucking finally. Honestly, it's about damn time. I remember calling 2016 the year of the pulse because the United Nations did at the time. We finally arrived in a place where food companies are following suit and actually making chips and baked goods using pulse flour. Here's the thing. I've been critical of bean brownies and chickpea everything in the past, but I want to clarify for you what I mean by that. It's mainly because of the marketing and not the product itself. I just find it annoying how the whole internet is always like, this is a brownie, but it's made from cauliflower. Can we just call a spade a spade? It's a cauliflower brownie. I mean, not everything needs to be made out of cauliflower, and brownies are certainly leading that charge. Can we just call things what they are? And at the same time, At the same time, using more nutritious ingredients to make foods using flavors we love that have been historically more indulgent to us is innovation, especially in this category, because what is unique about pulses is that they add fiber and protein in one food, in one ingredient. The benefit of that is to have brownies that will be ultimately higher in protein and fiber. Even if you don't actually change the whole added sugar content per serving, you are getting a more satisfying brownie. So if you do like the flavor and you are willing to try it, or at least occasionally consume that product with a flour that is going to be more nutrient dense, one made from black beans, then you are going to be more satisfied from that food on the whole. So is it going to be the same as a regular brownie? Absolutely not. And should you absolutely have a brownie when you're really in the mood to eat one? Yes, a real brownie, for sure. It's a little bit of a confused space in which to play, because if your added sugar content is still going to be high, how nutritious can you actually be? I think it's almost like a starting spot in the industry. How can we innovate on this from here and make this into a more nutritious product? But we got to start somewhere. Also, lots of talk about the dietary guidelines for 2025, which I just read this morning might be changing. Something that was proposed in the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee's report, scientific report, was a lot about beans and legumes and pulses. So a lot of focus on pulses now. And I think that can only be great for US farmers and can only be great for human health. Both things can be true at the same time. In this case, beans being the perfect example. Pulses are the OG of regenerative ag. So with all of this talk about regenerative agriculture certified, how do they play a role in this? And because they're actually a real whole food and not some bullshit Impossible Burger type of product, I think we need to have a North Star on this. And if I was going to make a claim about having a North Star when it comes to regenerative agriculture, it's look no further than the category of pulses. All right, next. We already talked about dragon fruit, but I want to come back to this a little bit because tropical flavors are in. It's like, I'm thinking about those like memes, in versus out. Tropical flavors are here. They're everywhere. Passion fruit, guava, calamansi, coconut forward flavors are showing up in new and unexpected ways. The best thing I tasted at Expo West was a freeze-dried coconut snack that I was told you cannot yet get here in the US, which is obnoxious, but such is life. I believe they are from Southeast Asia, and I am going to find a way to get these to us. It's like me on the dark web trying to get the freeze-dried coconut. I don't know. Stay tuned. Next on my list, I have the aluminum can boom. Single-use plastics, go away. And aluminum cans sit right next to me. I don't know what I'm saying at this point, but more brands are moving into canned beverages, even for things like coffee and smoothies. I'm not at all surprised by this, right? Because we've seen this trend building for the last few years, and I think it'll only continue to grow as we learn more about the impact of microplastics on human health. But at the same time, anything you remove from a product is only as good as what it's replaced with. So you can easily see someone in 5 years being touted as some, amazing, brilliant whistleblower for discovering that aluminum cans contain XYZ ingredient that's killing you. In reality, what will still remain the same is that we can't always use glass for everything. It's unrealistic. I break shit all the time. As I was recording this podcast, broke a glass 5 minutes ago before I started recording. We also need convenient solutions for real life that don't mean that, our hands are bleeding as we try to record the podcast because we're picking up glass from the floor. There's that. We also need more solutions to help us consume more of the foods that we enjoy and that are beneficial to our health. So hats off to cans. Let's see where this one goes. Raw honey. Raw honey is on the rise. Raw honey is getting a functional food rebrand, although you could argue I think it's always been baked in. It's positioned as an immune booster, an energy source, and even a gut health aid. I love honey. There's some decent research on honey and health benefits, but the way that the food industry, the natural products industry, has taken these health benefits and exploited them into something that they're not is wild. It's also all over social media. Everyone is eating the raw honey basically straight from the jar as a dip for their dates and butter. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's very sticky also, just to throw that part in there. All I have to say about this one is, first, honey is still added sugar. Let's not forget about that. Ultimately, the benefits of honey can still be outweighed by the negative impact of overconsumption of added sugar in real life on human health. We cannot get away from that fact. Also, the products in which raw honey is present are questionable in their own right. Have you guys seen this brand, Honey Mamas? I'm so sorry to call them out, but I just have to. The serving for one bar is a third of a bar. This bar is like an inch big in the first place. It's completely absurd. If you're making products like these, I'm talking to you. If you are making products like these in which you need to make the serving size a quarter or a third or a half of a single serve item, you've lost the plot. You need to reformulate. That's really all I have to say about that. All right, for our 13th trend, more meat and tallow, but still lots of plants. Okay, the plant-based everything trend is not dead. I just want to announce that because there's definitely a lot of plants at this show. And if we think about Expo West as being a place where products are launched and trends start to percolate, that means a couple years out, we will be seeing these products everywhere. So it's just something to think about because Expo West is technically very ahead of where the market is going. A lot of tallow-based skincare. That was interesting to me. Lots of grass-fed meat, the skincare, the collagen-packed foods, the colostrum of it all. But it's not an either-or situation is really what I can glean from that. Plant-based innovation is still strong, but especially in snacks and dairy alternatives, for sure, it's there. I'm here for either of these two sides of the same coin, but it's enough with the conflation of one versus the other being associated with unadulterated health. It's not that simple. If it were that simple, we wouldn't have 75% of Americans being overweight or obese. If it were that simple that one type of ingredient, let's say plant-based oils like seed oils, animal-based fats like beef tallow, being the be-all end-all cure-all for things. Interestingly, on the topic of seed oils, the conflation of seed oils with horrible for your health, not only is it wrong, but every week I am reminded of how incredibly wrong it is. New study just came out last week showing that swapping butter for seed oils can reduce risk of all-cause mortality and risk of death specifically from heart disease and cancer. So tell me when enough is enough of the just blatant lying about one single ingredient versus actually looking at foods on the whole. Because you'll never catch me saying that the foods in which seed oils are present are good for your health. I'm never going to say that. But to single out this one specific ingredient when research shows us the opposite about that ingredient is just ridiculous at this point. This is why I always say that any ingredient is as good for your health or as negative impacts for your health as the amount of and frequency with which you consume it and the context in which it's consumed. Seed oils on their own are not harming your health. Not if you're using your seed oil to make your broccoli. Okay. Seed oils, when consumed in the form of ultra processed packaged foods that are high in added sugar, saturated fat, sodium, these are going to be the foods that ultimately, when you consume them frequently in large quantities over time, are going to derail your health. That is just a statement of fact. The presence of seed oil is not making the difference there. And this is what is currently driving me nuts about the RFK agenda so far is going on Sean Hannity's show and sitting down at Steak and Shake and having their beef tallow fries. It is honestly such a stupid way of speaking to Americans and gaslighting people. It's making Americans think that you have done something or influenced this new wave of products where people are RFKing their French fries by using beef tallow instead of seed oils. Yeah, okay. Deep fried foods are still deep fried foods. They're still foods that you should not be consuming in excess. We know that French fries are not the most nutritious food, and saying that they're better for you by changing the type of oil in which this highly refined, deep fried, breaded carbohydrate is fried in is going to make the difference in someone's health is absolutely insane and it's insulting. Anyway, that was my rant on that topic. That's not quite related to Expo West, but it felt like the moment to just keep going with that. I don't know if anyone caught RFK on Sean Hannity on that topic. I'm going to hopefully cover a little bit more of that later in the episode, so definitely stay tuned. I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Anyway, lots of trends, lots of up-and-comers. There's room for both plant and animal-based products. It's ultimately going to be a question of what else is in that product that makes or breaks the nutritional quality overall of the product itself. And then on an individual level, it's ultimately always going to come down to the amount of the product you eat, how often you consume it, and the context in which it's consumed. Remember that. I promised you the tea, and I'm here to spill it. All right. First, term Gell-Mann Amnesia Effect was coined by the author and physicist Michael Crichton, who described how experts in a particular field often notice glaring errors when reading media coverage about their area of expertise. However, they still tend to trust the same publication on other topics. Often those topics are outside of their expertise, forgetting how unreliable it was in their domain. I am experiencing this profoundly, except I think I'm maybe having the opposite of that. It's making me feel like I can't trust any publication. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, particularly if you work in nutrition, because it would be so amazing to say that everything that's happening with MAHA at the moment, the Make America Healthy Again movement, it'd be so amazing to be able to say, oh, it's just, the far left is covering this inaccurately. No, because the right is covering this inaccurately too. It is full-scale media mayhem, cesspool of confusion and inaccuracy. And they would be wise to hire some dietitians to fact check some of the things that they are writing about. But I digress. The point of me sharing any of that with you is because I attended the MAHA panel at Expo West. Here's the most interesting thing about the panel. The room was empty. And I just want to say, to me, that's an indictment on frankly, the conference itself. It's so rarely their fault, right? Like, you're so busy at a conference, you have a million things to do, a million things to think about. And particularly if you're a buyer or you are a presenter or you are a panelist on a different topic, as I was, this was after my panel, so I had the luxury of being able to attend. Or even if you're just someone who's there for the day and you want to maximize your ability to go to all of the product halls, it's really not your fault. I don't even want to say it like that. What I really mean here is just that the actual panel itself was not really publicized by New Hope / Informa, who are the company and the media entity, the trade media entity that puts on Expo West. I get the sense that because MAHA has become a Trump administration aligned movement, that there was this feeling of, we don't want to elevate this too much on the part of New Hope and Informa. Guys, I don't want to assign a sentiment to an organization, okay? But I have seen this type of thing before. It's not my first rodeo in this. And I get the sense that because they're now identified as being of the right, that there was this hesitation around promoting the event. On the other hand, the other thing that happened, and I'm not sure that this was intentional at all, in fact, I'm sure it wasn't intentional, is that the panel itself started a half an hour late. And that wasn't the fault of the panelists. They were there. But the panel was sponsored by Gaia. Okay, Gaia Herbs, they're a supplement company, which right there is, says a lot about what's happening with MAHA and supplements. I was struck by how few people had attended. Already a long session. It was tacked on to the end of another session. I happened to catch it because a colleague of mine alerted me to the fact that this panel was happening at all. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have known. That's how obscure it was. That's how hidden away it was. And I do think that it's really something to think about if you are listening to this by chance and you work for New Hope or Informa, that it's worth considering that just as Michael Jordan said, Republicans buy sneakers too, Republicans buy supplements too, Republicans buy food too, okay? Just because this movement has been aligned with a president that the left, people who dominate these types of spaces, does not mean that it's not a reality for consumers and that it's still worth promoting this type of event, because we need to know all sides and all aspects of who is influencing policy, who is against policy influences, and what are the different opinions in a space. We can't keep doing this thing that we've done for too long, which is be so precious with speech. We have to let people talk and have open dialogues about things. It is costing us significantly in so many areas of life. So that's just my little PSA on that topic. I really think that this panel should have been promoted. The panel was moderated by someone that I met last October at a dinner at Supply Side West, which is also put on by New Hope Informa, and also was a dinner that I was at Expo West, which I'll get to in just a second. He's lovely and was a great moderator and did a really good job. And I think asked some really interesting questions on the topic of MAHA. One thing that he was really keen to ask, which for the people who do attend this conference was an important question, was it seems like the MAHA platform, RFK Jr. as health secretary, that this could be really beneficial for the natural products industry, for the people who are attending the conference. And that at the same time, they were hearing it from a messenger that felt very uncomfortable, that messenger being Trump, right? So it's really just saying the quiet part out loud. I honestly felt like the combo of Callie Means, of course, does Callie Means not go? He's literally everywhere. He's everything everywhere all at once. Vani Hari, the food babe, and Del Bigtree, who was the former RFK communications chief during his presidential run. The panel was a bit intense. They come off in person very similarly to how they come off on television, which is like they're yelling at you. Like they are constantly yelling at you, leaning heavily into fear-based messaging around food, chemicals, public health policies, most of which coming from these folks are not grounded in reality, but they give a glimpse into the potential reevaluation of the Graz loophole, which then was subsequently announced this week. So I thought that was really interesting. For those of you who are just tuning into the Graz loophole and that reevaluation now, basically when companies get a safety assessment by the FDA, they are presenting the FDA with the data that they have about why a food additive is safe. So like, let's just say you're bringing aspartame to the FDA. You have to be able to show that a third party has verified the safety of that ingredient. And honestly, as a general statement, this is great. As you've heard me say before, I just think it's a question of priorities. This would not be high on my list if I were HHS, but there's that. MAHA Action also had a booth, which is their pack. The tea that I learned, I was at dinner on Thursday night at Expo West with a bunch of folks from the New Hope Informa team. Someone also attended from absolutely amazing person, but I'm going to let her remain anonymous. She was not from New Hope. She works for a trade association affiliated with USDA Organic. Now, if there has been one thing that you've heard consistently over and over again, like the drumbeat of the MAHA movement, it is glyphosate is killing us, glyphosate being the conventional pesticide that is used to protect conventionally grown crops from damage and to make sure that we have a consistent food supply. She mentioned that there was a scenario that she witnessed in which the folks from the Organic Trade Association were keen to reach out to MAHA because they're out there talking so much about the benefits of organic farming. You'd think that these people would want to have some type of credible information to use when it comes to speaking about organic farming and the potential benefits of organic farming, all of that, right? Apparently, they rebuffed this offering when it was discussed, like, hey, we'd love to share some of our data with you about organic farming. We'd love to bring you in. We'd love to meet with you guys. This was rebuffed. We got it. Do I know this 100%? No, I was not there. But this woman who I was with was present and said that it was completely rebuffed. We don't need that. We don't need your research, was the response to, would you like to have additional research about organic farming? Guys, this freaks the shit out of me. Why do you think you don't need any information? Why is it that if you have any access to credible info whatsoever, you turn away from it at every step? In any and every opportunity to actually speak credibly on a topic, you say, you know what, screw that. We don't want the credible version. We want the version that's just made up in our heads. That really scares me because I don't know what they're afraid of, right? Like if you are speaking truth, then what are you afraid of? If you are, then maybe your facts just align perfectly with the Organic Trade Association's facts. Right? I don't want to overhype the tea that I had to share with you guys. The marketing and perception of an organization's values and what they're trying to do and their mission statement is completely misaligned with reality. Why are you moving away from evidence-based findings that actually would support your cause? It does not make sense. If your goal is to help people, why would you rebuff the offer? It's weird. Vani Hari, very shrill, always yelling at you. Callie Means, always very shrill, always yelling at you, always has a pen in his hand. I need someone to explain that to me. I get it. You're taking notes as the panel goes, but you've now given this spiel 8,000 times. Your made up facts are already in your head. We already know. You're yelling at us and we know. We get it. We know you're going to scream at us about how like do it for the kids. And yet we all want to do it for the kids. And yet we still disagree with the way that you have decided this needs to be done by pushing agendas like changing one food color out for another and using beef tallow instead of seed oil. Del Bigtree, very well spoken. I had never seen him speak in person or even on TV. So I thought he was really well spoken. And I thought, by the way, I'm saying this, I'm being somewhat critical because you guys know Callie Means and Vani Hari are both two people that are a craw in my side because of the inaccuracies and the things that they say that are partially true. And then they go completely off the rails with a whole bunch of other stuff that is not actually grounded in any reality whatsoever. The thing I thought was interesting was that they did have some very salient, very excellent points that I thought were really well made. And then they went off the rails again, talking about how RFK is the only person to say that you can cure measles with vitamin A. Guys, you cannot. That's not a thing, okay? Vitamin A does not take the place of a vaccine for measles. We all know this. It's well established. This is some great science that we have available to us. Can vitamin A support the healing from measles once you've contracted it? Yes, but in very specific cases and with the oversight of a physician. Not because Jaclyn London said so, and certainly not because Robert F. Kennedy or Callie Means said so, right? So there's that. Okay, my takeaway after the fact. All of the issues that have been discussed so far about removing quote unquote poisons from the food supply, getting, toxins out of XYZ food product, making sure that we have clean ingredients, all of these marketing buzzwords that are actually relatively meaningless in the context of real science and real life. And the audience was very much into it, very much captivated. Now, at the same time, this was a sponsored event by Gaia, and I did happen to learn that the event itself was pushed for by MAHA. MAHA requested to be on a panel at Expo West. Good for them. Very smart. But again, if you're going to come there and lecture a group of people that are already relatively aligned, then all you're doing is lobbying, right? Like we can all be clear about the fact that this is just a pure lobbying effort, right? MAHA Action's also selling the Make America Healthy Again hats, like all of the kind of merch. There, beyond all the things that we've spoken about so far, there's something that just feels uniquely sinister about this, and I can't quite put my finger on it besides the grift of it all. But Vani Hari's there with her protein powder, her true protein powder, huge in the main hall of Expo, like signing books, promoting herself and her brand and using this opportunity to do that. And then fast forward to Monday of this week, and I just so happened to see, there they are, the MAHA Coalition has a meeting in the White House, and who is posting a picture? Callie Means, and in the picture is Vani Hari. That makes me really concerned because I just feel like we know who's on the MAHA Commission. We know that these people are Trump-appointed officials. I felt comfortable with it. I felt like these are people in the administration. Okay, good. We've got some solid people. We've got people bringing different points of view. You've got Brooke Rollins, who's USDA secretary. You've got Secretary of Health Kennedy. And we've got some balanced positions here. Why are Callie Means and Vani Hari in the room? They're not on the commission. Why are they in the room? Anyway, food for thought. That's my tea. That's my recap of Expo West. I'm looking at the clock as I record this and realizing I'm about to be late for a meeting, so I am going to have to wrap this up. As always, I am so grateful that you are here. If you enjoyed what you listened to today, I would love to hear from you. Feel free to leave a 5-star rating and a review wherever you're listening to this right now. Follow me on social media at Jaclyn London RD. Until next time, stay well.